Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Hamas blames Israel for an assassination made by foreign elements in Tunisia. An Israeli billionaire is put under house arrest, and the glass ceiling in the IDF begins to crack. I'm Aaron Porras here with the latest news in Israel. More information is coming out about the terror attack that shook Berlin last night, leaving 12 reportedly dead and 50 injured. According to the Israeli Foreign Ministry in Jerusalem, an Israeli man was wounded during Monday night's attack in Germany, and his wife is still reportedly missing. The Israeli embassy is coordinating with German authorities to find her as quickly as possible. German Chancellor Angela Merkel reportedly confirmed that a Muslim asylum seeker was most likely responsible for the terrorist attack, where a truck plowed through a crowded Christmas market in the heart of Berlin. Investigation into the assassination of a Hamas drone expert in Tunisia is heating up, and government officials now say it looks like there was international involvement in the death, which Hamas is blaming on Israel. The Tunisian Interior Minister announced that it appears foreign elements may have planned the fatal shooting of 49-year-old Mohamed Zouari. The Hamas drone engineer was found dead by his home near Sfax, Tunisia on Thursday.
إلى إمكانية ضلوع جهاز أجنبي في عملية الاغتيال، لكن هنا أريد أن أؤكد أنه لا يتوفر لدينا إلى حد الآن نتيجة للأبحاث اللي قمنا بها الكل لا يتوفر لدينا أي مؤيدات أو أي دليل قاطع على ذلك إلى حد الآن.
The minister confirmed that 10 Tunisians have already been arrested in connection with the crime, but says 2 foreigners escaped capture. While stopping short of identifying them, a deputy prosecutor general says one is a Belgian and the other is Swiss.
انطلقنا بعد في العديد من الإجراءات سواء مع منظمة انتربول أو عن طريق الدبلوماسية التونسية، وسيقع اتخاذ كل الإجراءات اللازمة على المستوى الأمني أو على المستوى العدلي أو على المستوى الدبلوماسي لتعبئة الرأي العام العالمي.
Hamas, an internationally recognized terror organization, told the Associated Press that Zionist treachery is behind the killing, but they haven't provided any evidence to back the claim of Israeli involvement. Jerusalem has yet to comment on the case. Now, Tunisia is bracing for further fallout, and the parliament is going to hold a special session to discuss the matter. Further, the National Organization of Tunisian Engineers is urging all of its members to wear black armbands, amid plans to hold a so-called Day of Wrath in Zouari's honor. The chosen day is the day after tomorrow. An Israeli billionaire businessman is making headlines today after a court ordered he be placed under house arrest amid suspicion that his mining company may be at the center of an international bribery investigation. Benny Steinmetz is the co-founder of a company named after himself, Benny Steinmetz Group Resources, known as BSGR. A government panel in Guinea is now reviewing how the company obtained rights to one of the world's largest untapped iron ore resources, called the Simandou deposit, back in 2008. Steinmetz and several other Israelis living abroad are alleged to have paid tens of millions of dollars to senior Guinean public officials to advance their businesses. An attorney for the 60-year-old Israeli magnate is denying the charges.
מדובר במחזור של טענות שמוכרות וידועות מזה שנים ארוכות. זה מהלך מתוכנן ויזום על ידי השלטון המושחת של נשיא גינאה שמנסה לגזול שלא כדין את זכויותיה של BSGR. אנחנו כמובן משתפים פעולה, אנחנו בטוחים בחפותנו, כמו שהתגלה לכל העולם רק בחודשים האחרונים. מדובר באותה קנוניה שטענו כל הזמן, ואנחנו בטוחים שמהר מאוד גם משטרת ישראל תשתכנע בצדקת הטענות.
BSGR says the investigations were initiated by Guinea's government with international police organizations in the United States, Britain, and Switzerland. The West African nation's former Minister of Mines was arrested in New York last week on charges he was involved in bribery payments as well. For now, the Israeli billionaire will remain under house arrest until January 2nd, unless his remand is extended as the inquiry continues. The Palestinian Authority is paying millions of dollars in aid money to pay the salaries of convicted terrorists sitting in Israeli prisons. Palestinian affairs expert Dan Diker told ILTV's Steve Leibowitz that PA President Mahmoud Abbas is a hindrance to peace prospects and that other avenues are being used to build peace from the ground up.
what must be paid attention to by the West is that the Palestinian Authority has officially legislated in their legal system terror payments for terrorists and their families. And if you go online and look at the Palestinian official budget, you will see over $300 million a year that has been allocated as terror trust payments, essentially, annuities that are paid to terrorists themselves and their families while terrorists are in Israeli prisons if they have been captured, or those that actually were killed while carrying out terror attacks against Israel. They receive very, very hefty sums of money that incentivize the entire Palestinian society to continue carrying out terror attacks.
And some European organizations and governments have been contributing to or paying the money that ends up going to the prisoners?
Well, Germany, in fact, was very much in the headlines on this issue recently, and they are looking into the ways in which their subsidies and forms of financial assistance to the Palestinian Authority have been possibly misused and included in this legislated Palestinian program, welfare program, essentially, for terrorists and their families. This has been an issue which was exposed over the last 5 or 6 years, but was too little paid attention to because there were other major issues on the international agenda with regard to terrorism coming out of Syria and the other problems in the Middle East, in Iraq and in Yemen and with Hezbollah and Hamas. So people have not focused on the fact that the Palestinian Authority that claims to be a state, claims to and is recognized by the international community as almost a state, is really a terror-sponsoring entity that is nowhere near accepting the moral and ethical responsibilities of the other 192 states in the UN state system.
They've just re-elected Mahmoud Abbas to another for another period as head of the PLO. He remains as president. There's no apparent successor. Are we deadlocked as far as Israel being able to negotiate with the Palestinians in good faith towards any kind of a solution here?
The major obstacle in the diplomatic process between Israel and the Palestinians can be found primarily in the chaos on the Palestinian side. Those who followed the 7th Fatah Congress that took place at the Muqata in Ramallah revealed that not only is the Mahmoud Abbas, the 82-year-old, unrecognized, unelected president or chairman of the Palestinian Authority, and not recognized by anyone in the public because he has been for 8 years, 7.5, 8 years, without any kind of elections taking place. But we see the very, very deep fissures inside the Palestinian political leadership. This is a major problem because if you have Hamas trying to take over the PLO, you have the Fatah in complete disarray, you have the rest of the PLO in disarray, you don't have the type of functional governmental system that can create a viable, peaceful leadership for the Palestinian people. However, there is a way forward, and we have seen in the areas of the West Bank that local leaders on the Palestinian side, Mukhtars and other religious leaders and other municipal leaders, are reaching out quietly to their Israeli counterparts, looking for that tight cooperation in infrastructure, in economy, in healthcare, and in other areas that defined the Israeli-Palestinian relationship before Oslo in 1993. That is the direction we're going to. We're going back to local and regional cooperation on the ground between Israeli professionals and Israeli local politicians and Palestinian counterparts, and that is going to build the very needed peace from the ground up.
Patriotism is very high here in the Jewish state, and nowhere is that more evident than among young people who are willing to dedicate several years of their lives by serving in the army. Now, since combat roles have been opened to female recruits, we're seeing that they're just as fearless as their male counterparts. Just over the past 4 years, the number of young women enlisting in combat services has more than doubled. 3% of female recruits volunteered for combat services in 2012, while 7% do today. What's more is military officials expect those numbers to climb even higher next year, when the Army opens its 4th mixed-gender combat battalion. In fact, the IDF's Manpower Directorate says there's no problem filling the available combat slots for women, and that those who do join are brimming with motivation. Right now, options for women include the Border Police, Aerial Defense Corps, and the Air Force. But since the demand is so high, defense officials say other positions may soon be opened for women in the Tank Unit, Combat Engineering Corps, and aboard the Navy's Sa'ar 6 missile ships. By the way, now there are also more female staff officers in the Israeli army with the rank of colonel. And it's also interesting to note that a decrease in the number of women assigned to clerical positions is proportionally mirroring their rise in combat units. For the first time ever, exactly 7% fewer young women became secretaries and clerks, while the same number became actual defenders of the Jewish state. Now that's girl power. If you're a heavy-duty athlete and the words Ironman or marathon don't scare you away, then we have something you may want to hear. Arguably one of the toughest endurance races in the world, the Israman Garmin triathlon combines lengthy distances across a variety of unforgiving terrain, and the 2017 challenge starts this January. Joining me today is Meidad Levy, event manager for Schwung, to tell us more. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about, what exactly is the Ironman Challenge and what does it consist of?
Well, first of all, the Israman Garmin Challenge is basically a long-distance triathlon. The standard triathlon is a 1.5 kilometer swim, a 40K bike, and a 10 kilometer run. And the Israman Garmin is a 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike, and we finish off with a easy marathon, 42.2 kilometers of running.
Easy marathon, no problem. Yeah, I just wanted, I found some conversions just to put that into context for some people. That's almost 2.5 miles swimming, 112 miles on the bike, and a full marathon of 26.2 mile run.
140 miles, 0.6, all in total.
Oh man, and how did it start?
Well, basically, in Israel, the Israman was run by an individual, private individual, and he ran it kind of locally for a few years. And after Schwung came in and grabbed this challenge, for the past 5 years, it has grown as triathlons and endurance races in general has been more popular in Israel. We can see today almost 2,000 participants in this challenge altogether. So
what makes the Ironman that, different than an Ironman?
Well, the Israman is basically the same distances as an Ironman, but we have to remember that like you said, the terrain is really unforgiving. Not only the terrain, but the winds. When you talk about 112 miles of biking, first of all, it starts off with a nice, at least 15 miles of uphill towards Netafim cross-border, which is really up high, and it's very cold. It's between 0 and 3 degrees Celsius. So it's really cold up there. And during the bike, you have a lot of unexpected. It could be crosswinds, it could be headwinds, and it's very, very tough and cold.
All right, so if I wanted to check out the competition, how many participants? You said you're averaging 2,000 now.
Yeah, we have people that are participating in the full Israman challenge, which is, like you said, the 140.6 miles. And of course, you have the people who are participating in the half distance, which is 70.3, just exactly the half distances. And you have people are doing threes. When you have relay races of 3 people, cool. Each one doing each discipline, which is nice. You have 3 people. They could be family members, they could be classmates, they could be friends, and each one of the participants takes part in one of the disciplines. It could be the bike, the run, or the swim.
So what are the typical demographics that you get as participants come in? Like age range.
Well, you'd be surprised. We have very young athletes, as young as 18 and 20, and usually endurance races are usually the age is between 35 to 45. That's the main population, but you have a really wide range. You have women over 60 and 70. You have it's really a wide range of participants all across the nation, from the north, from the south.
And they're these like 70-year-old people. They're completing this race. They're finishing.
They're completely in this race. They're totally committed. They're scheduled. They're every day, especially now, which is about a month before the Israman. They're totally dedicated because this race is not something that you could just decide that you want to do it.
Yeah, that brings me to my next question. What does the training look like to do something like this?
Well, first of all, you have to take the training seriously, because this is not a triathlon. A triathlon is something difficult, but an Ironman is something that you have to achieve some kind of a path that you have to walk along. And usually, most people who are novices in the field, they usually join up with a team. You have triathlon teams and you have long distance teams here in Israel, and you have quite an abundance of teams. It's a small country, but you have just in the center, in the Gush Dan area, in Tel Aviv area, you have something like 20 to 25 teams which participate in long distance triathlon. And usually what you do is you join a team, you sign up for you get a training program, and you follow it. And these training programs could be from 6 months to up to 8 months. Oh, wow. But if you're a novice and you haven't taken part in any triathlon, you just don't sign up for an Israman. You have to go through some kind of a path and some kind of milestones along the way to achieve an Israman.
Is there like some sort of elimination process that the Israman keeps people out, or?
Well, basically, you have to pass. You have to go a medical test, and you have to prove that you're healthy, and that you're allowed to participate in any kind of extreme or endurance races. Second of all, you have to stand within the cutoff times, just like every long distance race. You can't keep the roads closed forever. So basically, you have a cutoff time for each discipline. So let's say after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, if you're still on the bike segment, they'll cut you off and they'll say, sorry. You don't go home, you go back to the hotel.
All right, so just one quick question. What are some of the best and worst finishing times that you get on this triathlon?
First of all, I don't believe there is such a thing as a worst finishing time. And
in this sort of thing, you're right.
I believe that even the cutoff time is there for a reason, for logistical reasons. You can't keep it closed. But basically, everyone who finishes an Ironman, deserves the credit. And of course, up until today, you have in the last year, the world records has been broken around the world, not in the Israman. So you see the world is getting better. But Israman, because it's a really tough race, you have a sub 10 result. Under 10 hours is usually a kind of a dreamy result. World record is less than 8 hours.
God.
So and that was achieved this year. So what sounds almost impossible for you is less than a day's work for some of the people.
Wow. Well, we hope that it's an enormously successful event. I'm sure it will be. Please, for all of the people who are watching, register if you're into it. And thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Palestinian officials in Bethlehem are boasting that this Christmas, the biblical city can once again say there's no room at the inn. There's been a surge in pilgrims and tourists flocking to the town of Jesus' birth as relative calm prevails in the West Bank this holiday season.
Well, this year we had an increase in number of visitors coming to Palestine in general and to Bethlehem in specific. The increase, now the tourists who visited Bethlehem and Palestine were about 2.3 million. The first quarter of the year was not a good season for the tourism sector in Palestine, but then afterwards we witnessed an increase and continuous increase in number of visitors and overnight stays in Bethlehem. The last quarter was really booming. We received many tourists from all over the world.
Tourism is a major source of revenue for the Palestinian economy and provides livelihoods for about 5,000 families in Bethlehem, which has about 5,000 rooms in 46 hotels. The owner of one lodge says conflicts in neighboring countries are playing a role in the increase of visitors to his city.
احنا في بيت لحم عندنا 46 فندق، حوالي 5000 غرفة فندقية ب 10000 سرير، والأمور في تحسن في نسبة الإشغال في الفنادق الفلسطينية، وهذا راجع للأمن والاستقرار الموجود في البلد وراحة الزبون وعدم وجودنا على الأخبار العالمية كعنوان في عنده مشاكل. مش إحنا، في دول حوالينا عندها مشاكل، مش إحنا. هذا زاد نسبة الطلب على الأراضي المقدسة، والحجوزات السنة القادمة عمالة بتكثر بسرعة، وإن شاء الله خير، ببشر بالخير. والكريسماس الجاي ب 23 و 24 25 12 الغرف ملاني كلها الفندقية اللي عندنا في بيت لحم.
Israeli-Palestinian violence has driven tourists away in the past, especially during the 2000 to 2005 Palestinian uprising. But the security situation is far more relaxed now. The main attraction in Bethlehem, of course, is the 4th century Church of the Nativity. It was built over a grotto that Christian tradition identifies as the actual site of Jesus' birth. Another popular spot is the Christmas tree in Manger Square, where choirs sing carols all throughout the holiday. Many of the pilgrims' itineraries include all of the highlights of Jesus' upbringing in the Holy Land, including his boyhood town of Nazareth in the Galilee, which is now the largest Arab city in Israel.
Very nice place, very historical, and we came to see everything: Jerusalem, Nazareth, Bethlehem, and it's very beautiful, very historical.
The Christmas season lasts a little longer here than in the West. The Eastern Orthodox celebration of Christmas isn't until January 7th, and the Armenian commemoration is even later on January 18th. This must truly be one of the world's best places to visit for lovers of the Christmas spirit. In the week before Christmas, it seems Bethlehem isn't the only Palestinian city to start preparing for the holiday cheer. The tiny remaining Christian community of Gaza is also doing its best to hold traditional gatherings within the Islamist Hamas-controlled stronghold. ILTV's Natasha Kirchuk has more on the story.
Early celebrations include this Mass at one of the 3 remaining churches in the Hamas-controlled territory. The worshippers tried to garner cheer with marching bands and bagpipes amid the flying of Palestinian flags and pouring rain. Christians make up a dwindling minority of around 3,500 people, out of Gaza's 1.5 million Muslim majority population.
رسالة السنة هذه إن شاء الله يدعم السلام على المنطقة العربية كلها وبالأخص فلسطين وبالذات سوريا والأحداث اللي عم بتصير فيها الأخيرة هاي بمنطقة حلب إن شاء الله بيعم السلام وتصير هاي سنة تلاعن إن شاء الله.
The state of Israel helped Jerusalem's Latin patriarch cross into Gaza to conduct the service. The territory remains under a partial blockade imposed by Jerusalem and Cairo after the Islamist Hamas faction seized control from Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's secular Fatah party in 2007. The terror group rules the enclave with an iron grip and remains committed to the destruction of the Jewish state.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. If you're quick to act, it's not too late for you to register for the Israman triathlon and compete for your spot in the history books, which brings us to tonight's word. Tacharut, meaning competition. A tacharut can be in the form of a race, a beauty pageant, a workplace rivalry, or even just between friends regarding who can stick more French fries in their mouth. It turns out, not that many. But whatever tacharut you love to compete in, just remember to take the results lightly and try again if you lose, and be humble if you win.
because the best person to have a tacharut with anyways is against yourself. Let's take a look at the weather forecast.
ILTV's weather forecast is sponsored by Adopt a Savta, taking care of Israel's lonely Holocaust survivors.
Tonight should be partly cloudy and cold, with the low being 48 or 9 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow you can expect some light clouds and a chance of rain, but with a slight rise in temperatures to a high of 62 or 17 degrees Celsius. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.86 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. Thanks for watching, and see you tonight.